But it took thousands of Shadowborn working together, creating a field that disrupted the Nethrak's phase variance, forced them into normal space where the Shadowborn came slowly at first. Minho spread the word through hidden networks, old connections that most people didn't know existed. One by one, they arrived at the station. They came in disguise, wearing cloaks and staying in shadows, afraid of being seen together. Jiwan watched them gather in a converted cargo bay that Commander Yoon had quietly provided. She hadn't said much after the council rejected their warning, but she'd given them space to work. That was enough. There were 43 Shadowborn in total. Some were young like Nari, others old like Soman. They'd spent their lives hiding, isolated, told they were worthless. Now they stood together for the first time in generations, and Jiwan could see the fear and hope mixing in their faces. "Thank you for coming," Nari said, her voice carrying across the bay. "I know this is dangerous. I know many of you are risking everything just being here. Why did you call us?" A middle-aged Shadowborn named Deho asked. "What can we possibly do against the Nethrak? Our ancestors needed thousands. We are only dozens." "Our ancestors didn't have human technology," Jiwan said, stepping forward. He activated a holographic display showing designs his team had been working on for days. "We can amplify your abilities, connect you together into a network, make 43 Shadowborn act like 4,000. "That is impossible," Soman said, but she sounded more curious than dismissive. "Not impossible. Difficult, yes, but we've tested the theory." Jiwan pulled up data from experiments he and Nari had run. When Nari modified the shields during the solar flare, she showed that Shadowborn can manipulate electromagnetic fields at massive scales. "We've built devices that can link your individual abilities together, creating a combined field." "These devices," another Shadowborn said, studying the designs. "They look like neural interfaces." "That's exactly what they are," Jiwan confirmed. "Modified to work with your unique brain structures. You'll be able to sense each other, coordinate instantly, and combine your power into something much greater than the sum of its parts." "And you trust human technology with our minds?" Deho asked suspiciously. "I trust Jiwan," Nari said firmly. "He has never lied to me, never treated me as less than I am. If he says this will work, I believe him." There was silence. Then Somin spoke. "I am old. I have little left to lose. I will try this human technology." She looked around at the others. "But we need more than amplifiers. We need warriors, ships, weapons. The Shadowborn can sense the enemy and disrupt their phase, but someone must strike the killing blow." "Leave that to us," said a new voice. Everyone turned. Commander Yoon stood at the entrance with a group of human officers. Behind them, wearing Valtorian military uniforms, was Ambassador Kim and several other diplomats with their Valtorian companions. "Commander?" Jiwan said, surprised. "I contacted Earth Command," Yoon said. "Told them everything. They're sending a battle group. 20 ships should arrive in 4 days." She smiled grimly. "Humanity doesn't abandon allies when they're in trouble, even if those allies are Shadowborn that everyone else has abandoned. The Valtorian military is divided," Mirai added, stepping forward. Many council members refused to believe the threat, but some officers remember the old stories their grandparents told. "They are quietly gathering ships. Not many, but enough to help." "This is madness," Deho muttered, but he was smiling. "Complete madness. We are actually going to fight." "We're going to try," Jiwan said. "And we have one advantage. The Nethrak don't know we're ready for them. They think the Shadowborn are gone, that no one can see them coming. They're wrong." Over the next 3 days, they worked frantically. Human engineers built the neural interfaces while Shadowborn tested them, learning to link their minds and abilities. It was strange and uncomfortable at first, having other consciousnesses touch yours, but gradually they adapted. The Valtorian military officers who believed them provided tactical data and ship positions. Commander Yoon coordinated with Earth's incoming battle group. Jiwon found himself in the middle of it all, translating between groups, solving problems, pushing everyone forward. And Nari became the anchor point. When the Shadowborn linked together, she was at the center, her abilities the strongest and most refined. She could feel them all now. 42 other minds connected to hers, their combined senses reaching out into space like invisible fingers. "I can feel them," she said on the third night, her eyes closed as she stood in the center of the linked Shadowborn network. "The Nethrak. They are close now. maybe 2 days away. They are feeding on the colonies at the edge of the system, draining ships and stations. How many? Jiwon asked. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They swarm like insects, but each one is intelligent, hungry. They are coordinating. She opened her eyes and Jiwon saw fear there. There are so many. Can we fight them? I do not know, but we must try. The next day, the Earth battle group arrived. 20 warships, bristling with weapons and carrying thousands of crew. The fleet admiral was a tough woman named Chen, who'd fought in Earth's colony wars. She took one look at the situation and started giving orders. We can't fight what we can't see, she said bluntly. So you Shadowborn are our eyes. You tell us where they are, we shoot them. Simple. Simple, Soman said dryly, is not the word I would use. The Valtorian ships that had quietly answered the call numbered 15. Not much, but their weapons were more advanced than Earth's. Combined with the human fleet, they had 35 warships, against thousands of Nethrak. I fought worse odds, Admiral Chen said, though she didn't sound convinced. The battle plan was complex. The Shadowborn would link together on the station, using the neural interfaces to combine their abilities into a massive field that could detect the Nethrak across the entire system. When they found concentrations of enemies, they would focus their power to disrupt the Nethrak's phase variants, forcing them into normal space where weapons would work. The fleet would position itself to strike these forced manifestations. The problem, Jiwon explained to the assembled officers, is that this will drain the Shadowborn quickly. They can't maintain the field indefinitely. We'll have maybe an hour, 2 at most, before they're exhausted. Then we make every shot count, Admiral Chen said. 1 hour to save the galaxy. I've had worse deadlines. On the day of the battle, Jiwon stood with Nari in the cargo bay where the Shadowborn had gathered. They were all wearing the neural interfaces now. Silver bands around their heads that pulsed with soft light. They held hands in a circle, 43 Shadowborn linked together for the first time in centuries. I am afraid, Nari admitted quietly. So am I, Jiwon said. He took her hand. But fear is okay. Fear means we understand the danger. It's what we do despite the fear that matters. If I die today, you won't. But if I do, I want you to know that you changed my life. Before I met you, I believed I was worthless. You showed me I was wrong. You showed me I could be important, valuable, worthy of respect. Tears formed in her black eyes. Thank you for choosing me, Jiwon Park. Thank you for letting me know you, Jiwon replied. He wanted to say more. Wanted to tell her that somewhere over these months she'd become more than just a companion or friend. But there wasn't time. Now go. Show them what Shadowborn can really do. Nari joined the circle. The neural interfaces activated, and all 43 Shadowborn went rigid as their minds linked together. On the monitors, G1 could see their combined field expanding outward from the station. An invisible net of electromagnetic sensing spreading across the solar system. Contact, Nari's voice said, but it sounded strange, layered like 43 voices speaking as one. We sense them. They are everywhere, in the asteroid belt, behind the moons, in the shadow of the sun, thousands upon thousands. Show us, Admiral Chen ordered. The tactical displays lit up with targets. Red dots appeared across the system, so many they looked like a swarm of angry fireflies. The fleet officers stared in shock. That's impossible, someone whispered. There must be 10,000 of them. We're dead, another officer said flatly. No. Minho's voice also speaking through the linked network. We force them into normal space in groups. The fleet strikes fast. We move to the next group. We cannot kill them all, but we can break their attack. Force them to retreat. The boy's right, Admiral Chen said. We don't need to win. We need to make them think twice about coming back. Target the largest concentration. Shadowborn, do your thing. The linked Shadowborn focused their combined power on a massive Nethrak hiding in the asteroid belt. G1 watched the monitors as the invisible field intensified, wrapping around the phase-shifted entities and forcing them into normal space. They appeared on sensors suddenly. Hundreds of them, energy beings that looked like twisted shapes of crackling lightning. They were horrifying and beautiful at once, alien in a way that made human minds hurt to perceive them. Fire, Admiral Chen commanded. The fleet opened up. Missiles streaked across space. Energy weapons flashed. The Nethrak, caught in normal space and unable to phase shift away, died by the dozens. They shrieked. a sound that registered on sensors as electromagnetic static as the weapons tore through them, but more kept coming. For every one that fell, 2 more appeared from the shadows. 3 ships disappeared in 2 weeks. First was a cargo vessel carrying supplies between Earth colonies, then a Valtorian scout ship on a routine patrol, then a human mining ship with 70 people aboard. All of them vanished without warning, without distress calls, without any trace. Jiwan sat in the conference room with the other diplomats and their Valtorian companions, watching Commander Yoon present the data. On the screen, star maps showed the last known positions of the missing ships. They formed a rough line pointing toward the station. "We're trying not to panic," Yoon said, though her face showed she was worried. "There could be innocent explanations. Equipment failure, navigation errors. But 3 ships in 2 weeks is unusual." Ambassador Kim raised his hand. "Could it be pirates? I've heard there are outlaws in this sector." "Unlikely," said Mireille, his Valtorian companion. Her glowing patterns shifted to worried orange. "Pirates take ships. They do not make them vanish completely, and they do not attack Valtorian vessels. They know we would hunt them down." "Then what are we looking at?" another diplomat asked. No one had an answer. Jiwan glanced at Nari, sitting quietly beside him. Since the solar flare incident, people treated her differently. Not exactly with respect, but at least they acknowledged she existed. Some were even friendly. Others watched her with nervous eyes, afraid of what she could do. Nari hadn't said much about what she'd felt during the solar flare, the dark echo she'd mentioned. But Jiwan saw how she sometimes stopped and went still, like she was listening to something only she could hear. After the meeting, they walked back to their quarters. Nari was quiet, which wasn't unusual, but this felt different, heavier. "You're worried," Jiwan said. It wasn't a question. "I feel them," Nari said softly. "The ships, or where they were. There are empty spaces in the field now, places where there should be signals, but there is nothing. Like holes, you can sense that from here? Those ships were light years away. I have always been able to feel far things. Since I was very small, my parents thought I was crazy." She stopped walking and turned to him. "Jiwan, I think this is connected to what I felt during the solar flare. The dark echo, the hungry feeling. You think something is hunting ships? I think something is hunting everything. And I think it has been hunting for a very long time." She looked scared, more scared than he'd ever seen her. "I need to find the old texts, the ones that were destroyed. There must be copies somewhere." They talked about Shadowborn abilities, but they talked about other things too. Dangers, enemies in the dark. "Where would we find copies? You said they were all destroyed." "The official copies were, but knowledge is hard to kill completely. There are always fragments, hidden records, things saved by people who did not believe the Council." Nari's eyes were intense. "I need to talk to other Shadowborn. The few who are left. They might know things. Can you contact them?" "It is forbidden for Shadowborn to gather. We are supposed to stay isolated, ashamed, invisible." Her voice turned bitter. "But yes, I know how to find them. My brother Minho is one. He lives in hiding on a Valtorian colony world. And there is an elder, Somin, who might still be alive." Jiwan made a decision. "Then we'll go find them." "Jiwan, you cannot. You are a diplomat. You have duties here, and traveling to find Shadowborn will make the Valtorian Council angry. Let them be angry." He grabbed his communicator. "I'll tell Commander Yoon we're doing cultural research, visiting different Valtorian communities. It's not even a lie. Why would you risk this for me? Because 3 ships are gone, Nari? More might follow. If you think this is connected to your abilities to Shadowborn history, then we need to know more. Fast." He smiled at her. "Besides, I'm curious. Scientist, remember? Mysteries drive me crazy." 2 days later, they were on a transport ship heading to the colony world of Valterra 5. It was a smaller world, far from the Valtorian core systems, the kind of place where people could hide if they needed to. The trip took 4 days. Jiwan used the time to dig through historical archives, looking for any mention of Shadowborn. Most records were clean, sanitized. The official history barely mentioned them except to note they were a rare genetic defect. But he found fragments. A military report from centuries ago that mentioned Shadowborn navigators guiding fleets through dangerous space. A medical document describing their unusual neural structures. A deleted file, partially recovered, that talked about the Watchers in Darkness who keep the old enemy at bay. "What old enemy?" Jiwan muttered, reading by the light of his tablet. Nari looked over his shoulder. That is what we need to find out. When they landed on Valterra 5, the spaceport was small and run down. The colony was mostly farmers and miners, people who wanted to be far from the glittering heart of the Valtorian Empire. Perfect for someone who didn't want to be found. Nari led them through narrow streets to a building on the edge of town. It was gray and plain with no markings. She knocked on the door in a specific pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 1 knock. The door opened a crack. A young Valtorian male peered out. His skin was gray like Nari's, with dark patches in different patterns. When he saw her, his eyes went wide. "Nari?" he whispered. "Hello, Minho." The door flew open and Minho pulled Nari into a tight hug. They spoke quickly in Valtorian, too fast for Jiwon's translator to keep up. Finally, Minho noticed him. "You brought a human?" he said in English, his accent thick but understandable. "This is Jiwon Park. He is my diplomatic companion. And my friend." Nari smiled slightly. "He knows what I am and does not care." Minho studied Jiwon carefully. "You chose my sister in the selection ceremony. I heard about it. Everyone heard about it. They said you were stupid or crazy. Maybe both," Jiwon said. "Nice to meet you. Why are you here?" Minho asked, his tone cautious. "It is dangerous for Shadowborn to be together. If the council finds out, ships are disappearing," Nari interrupted. "And I felt something when I used my abilities to save the station. Something dark and far away. I think it is connected to the old stories, the ones about why Shadowborn existed." Minho's face went pale. "You felt the Nethrak." "The what?" "Come inside. This is not something to discuss in the street." Inside, the building was simple but comfortable. Minho lived with 3 other Shadowborn, all of them hiding from a society that rejected them. They gathered in the main room when they heard why Nari and Jiwon had come. "The Nethrak," Minho began, "are what our ancestors fought. They are not like normal life. They are energy beings, pure electromagnetic consciousness that exists partly in our dimension and partly outside it. Phase-shifted entities," Jiwon said, his mind racing. "That would explain why normal sensors can't detect them. Yes, they live in the dark spaces between galaxies, feeding on radiation and energy. Every few thousand years, they come to feed on inhabited space. They consume ships, stations, entire planets if they can. They drain all energy, leaving nothing behind." "Why haven't I heard about this?" Jiwon asked. "Why isn't this in any historical records?" "Because the Valtorian Council erased it," Nari said quietly. "When they decided Shadowborn were shameful, they also erased the reason Shadowborn existed in the first place." "Exactly," Minho confirmed. "Shadowborn were created by our ancestors not as a defect but as a defense. We can sense the Nethrak because we operate on the same wavelengths they do. Normal Valtorians who only see visible light are blind to them. Humans too, with your limited senses. So Shadowborn were guardians," Jiwon said. "Protectors. And your people decided to throw that away because you didn't look pretty enough. Beauty became more important than survival," another Shadowborn said bitterly. "The council thought the Nethrak were gone forever. They decided we were no longer needed. So they made us invisible in a different way. But the Nethrak aren't gone," Nari said. "I felt them. They're coming back, which means we need Soman," Minho said. "She's the oldest living Shadowborn. She remembers the last time they came. She was just a child, but she remembers." "Where is she?" "Hidden. She's paranoid, thinks the council is hunting her. She moves around, never stays in one place long." Minho hesitated. "But I can find her. Give me a day." While they waited, more news came. 2 more ships had disappeared, and this time there were fragments of wreckage. What the salvage teams found was strange. The metal was drained, brittle, like all the energy had been sucked out at the molecular level. The electronics were dead, not broken, but somehow empty. "It's them," Nari said, reading the reports. "The Nethrak are feeding." Minho found Soman's location and they traveled to meet her. She lived in a cave system on an uninhabited moon, hiding from the world. When they finally found her, Jiwon was surprised. She was ancient, her gray skin wrinkled and her movement slow, but her black eyes were sharp and aware. "So," she said, her voice creaking with age, "the young ones have finally figured it out. The darkness is returning." "You knew?" Nari asked. "I have always known. I felt them growing stronger, waking up from their sleep between the stars. I tried to warn the council decades ago. They called me insane and threatened to imprison me." She smiled without humor. "So I hid instead." We need to know how to fight them, Ji-won said. How did your ancestors stop them before? They didn't stop them. They drove them back, made them retreat to the dark. And because... He hesitated, then continued. Because I have a feeling that your abilities might be important. The alarm that woke them 3 weeks later was not the gentle morning chime. It was the emergency klaxon, loud and urgent, designed to get everyone moving immediately. Ji-won rolled out of bed and grabbed his uniform. Through the walls he could hear the same alarm echoing throughout the station. Nari emerged from her room at the same time, already dressed. What is happening? She asked. Emergency alert. Nothing good. Ji-won pulled on his boots and grabbed his communicator. It was filled with urgent messages. Solar flare. A big one. The sun just erupted. Nari went very still. How big? Class X50, maybe higher. The radiation wave is already on its way here. He read through the reports quickly, his face going pale. We have maybe 20 minutes before it hits. The station wasn't designed to handle a flare that powerful. It had shields, but they were meant for normal space radiation, not a direct blast from an angry star. The diplomatic quarters were in the outer ring, one of the least protected areas. We need to get to the central core, Ji-won said. Come on. They ran into the corridor. Other people were already there, all heading the same direction. Some were panicking, pushing and shoving. Ji-won kept a hand on Nari's arm, making sure they didn't get separated in the crowd. The station's AI voice came over the speakers, calm and mechanical. All personnel proceed to radiation shelters. Solar event will impact station in 18 minutes. All personnel proceed to radiation shelters. They reached the central spoke that led to the core. It was packed with people. Hundreds of station crew, diplomats, civilians, all trying to get to safety at once. The crowd was barely moving. This is taking too long, Ji-won muttered. He checked his communicator. 15 minutes left. Beside him, Nari had gone very pale. Her black eyes were wide and she was breathing fast. Ji-won, something is wrong. I know the flare. No, not just the flare. She grabbed his arm tight. I feel something else. The wave coming from the sun, it is not just radiation. There is something in it. Something sharp, twisted. What do you mean? The electromagnetic field, it feels wrong. Like it has been bent somehow. Changed. She closed her eyes, concentrating. The station shields will not work properly. The field is wrong. It will go through them. Ji-won felt ice in his stomach. Are you sure? I can feel it. Like pressure building. The shields will fail. She opened her eyes. Many people will die. Ji-won looked at the crowd trying to get into the core. Even if they all made it, which was unlikely, the core's shielding might not be enough if what Nari sensed was true. He made a decision. Can you fix it? Nari stared at him. What? The electromagnetic field. The shields. You can sense them, manipulate them. Can you fix it? I do not know. I have never tried anything that big. We have 12 minutes. We can stand here and die, or you can try. Ji-won squeezed her shoulder. I believe you can do this. Why? You barely know me. Why do you believe in me? Because I've watched you for 3 weeks. I've seen what you can do. And right now you're the only chance everyone on this station has. He looked into her black eyes. You are not defective, Nari. You are not worthless. You are exactly what we need. Right now, in this moment, you are everything. Nari's hands were shaking. If I fail, then we tried. That's more than we have now. She took a shaky breath, then nodded. Where do I go? The shield generators. Level 3, Section 12. He grabbed her hand. I'm coming with you. They pushed through the crowd, going against the flow. People yelled at them, asking where they were going. Ji-won ignored them all. They reached a maintenance lift, and Ji-won used his diplomatic override to call it. The doors opened and they jumped in. 10 minutes, the AI voice announced calmly. The lift dropped fast. Ji-won's stomach lurched. Beside him, Nari had her eyes closed again, her face tight with concentration. I can feel the generators, she said. They are running at full power. But the frequency is wrong for what is coming. They are tuned for normal radiation, not this twisted field. Can you retune them? Maybe I need to touch them. Be close to them. The lift stopped and the doors opened. They ran down the corridor to the shield generator room. The door was locked. Ji-won's override didn't work on this one. These were critical systems. Stand back, Nari said. She put her hands on the control panel. Her dark patches started glowing, that barely visible light Ji-won had seen before. The panel sparked. The door hissed and slid open. Inside, the room was filled with massive machines humming with power. The shield generators were cylindrical towers that stretched from floor to ceiling, covered in panels and displays. They pulsed with blue light, creating a field that surrounded the entire station. 8 minutes to impact, the AI announced. Nari walked to the nearest generator and placed both hands on it. She gasped like she'd touched something hot. The glow in her dark patches got brighter. "I can feel it," she said. "The whole system. It is like hearing a song." The generators sing to each other, creating harmony. "But the song is wrong for what is coming. Can you change the song?" "I am trying." Her voice was strained. "It is so big. So much power. I have only ever affected small things, tablets, communicators. This is—" "You can do it," Jiwan said. He didn't know if that was true, but she needed to believe it. "I know you can." The generator's hum changed pitch. The blue light flickered. Nari's whole body was glowing now, not just her patches. The glow was spreading across her gray skin, patterns of light that looked like circuit diagrams or star maps. 6 minutes to impact. Sweat ran down Nari's face. The generators were responding to her, but it was clear the effort was costing her. Her legs shook. Her breathing came in gasps. "The field frequency," she said through gritted teeth. "I am shifting it. Higher. The twisted wave comes at a wrong angle. If I can match it, reflect it instead of absorb it." The room filled with a high-pitched whine. The displays on the generators flickered and changed, showing readings that Jiwan didn't understand. He could only watch and hope. 4 minutes to impact. All personnel must be in radiation shelters. 4 minutes. "Almost," Nari whispered. "Almost." Then she screamed. Her whole body went rigid. The light from her patches blazed so bright Jiwan had to look away. The generator's whine became a roar. Every display in the room went crazy, numbers scrolling too fast to read. And then suddenly everything went quiet. The generators settled into a new rhythm, a different pitch than before. The lights stabilized, but they weren't blue anymore. They were a deep violet, almost ultraviolet. Nari collapsed. Jiwan caught her before she hit the floor. Her skin was hot to the touch, and she was barely conscious. "Did it work?" she mumbled. "I don't know," Jiwan said. He held her close. "But you did something." The generators changed. 2 minutes to impact. All personnel in radiation shelters immediately. 2 minutes. There was no time to get to a shelter now. They were going to have to ride it out here in the generator room. Jiwan laid Nari gently on the floor and sat beside her, holding her hand. "If this doesn't work," he said, "I want you to know that I don't regret choosing you." "Not for a second." Nari squeezed his hand weakly. "I do not regret being chosen by you, Jiwan Park. You showed me I could be more than they said I was." 1 minute to impact. They waited. Jiwan could feel his heart hammering. This was it. Either Nari's desperate modification of the shields would work or everyone on the station would die. 30 seconds. Nari's eyes were closed. She was still glowing faintly. 10 seconds. 9, 8. Jiwan closed his eyes too. He thought about Earth, his family, his old lab, all the things he'd wanted to do. 3, 2, 1, impact. The station shook. A sound like thunder rolled through the walls. The lights flickered. Alarms screamed, and then nothing. Jiwan opened his eyes. He was still alive. The room was still intact. The generators were humming steadily in their new violet glow. The AI voice returned, and for the first time it sounded almost surprised. "Solar radiation wave has passed. Station shields held at 97% efficiency. All sections secure. No casualties reported." Jiwan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "You did it. Nari, you did it." But Nari didn't respond. She was unconscious, her breathing shallow. The glow in her patches was fading. She'd pushed herself too far. Jiwan grabbed his communicator. "Medical emergency, generator room level 3. I need a medic now." While he waited, he held Nari's hand and whispered, "Thank you. You saved us all. You saved everyone." Later, in the medical bay, Jiwan stood beside Nari's bed while the doctors worked. She was stable but exhausted. They said she needed rest, that she'd drained herself somehow, though they didn't understand how or why. Commander Yoon arrived, looking shaken. "Captain Park, the engineering team is analyzing what happened. They said the shields were modified. Someone changed their frequency at the last possible moment. They said it shouldn't have been possible. Nari did it," Jiwon said simply. "She can sense and manipulate electromagnetic fields. She felt that the normal shields wouldn't work, so she changed them. Yoon stared at him, then at Nari, then back at him. The Shadowborn did this? Yes, how? It's what Shadowborn can do, or what they used to do before everyone decided they were worthless and stopped asking. Jiwon's voice was hard. She saved 600 lives today, Commander, including yours. The morning alarm woke Jiwon earlier than he wanted. He stumbled out of bed and headed to the common area, expecting to find it empty. Instead, Nari was already there, sitting perfectly still at the table. She still wore her cloak, but the hood was down. Good morning, Jiwon said, heading to the small kitchen unit. Do you want some coffee or tea? I'm not sure what Valtorians drink in the morning. We do not need hot drinks, Nari said. Our bodies process energy differently than yours. But I will have water, please. Jiwon poured water for her and made himself coffee. He sat across from her at the table. In the morning light from the station windows, he noticed something he'd missed before. Nari's dark patches weren't random. They formed patterns like fractals or maybe circuit boards, intricate and actually quite beautiful if you looked at them the right way. So, he said after his first sip of coffee, tell me about being Shadowborn. If you're comfortable talking about it. Nari was quiet for a moment. Most Valtorians do not want to hear about it. They find it disturbing. I'm not most Valtorians. I'm just a curious human who used to be a scientist before I got pulled into diplomacy. You were a scientist? Nari looked interested for the first time. Astrophysicist. I studied stars, energy patterns, quantum mechanics. Then Earth needed diplomats who understood space, and I got volunteered. He smiled. I miss the lab sometimes. Politics is much more complicated than physics. I think I would like physics, Nari said quietly. It is about understanding how things truly work, not how they appear to work. Exactly. Jiwon leaned forward. So help me understand. What makes Shadowborn different from other Valtorians? Nari took a breath. Normal Valtorians absorb light. They take it in and their bodies convert it into those colors you saw. The more light they absorb, the more beautiful they become. It is both how we eat and how we show status. The brightest are the most powerful. Okay, that makes sense. But you don't do that? No, my body does not absorb light the same way. That is why I look dark and dull. Other Valtorians think it means I am weak or sick. She paused. But the ancient texts say something different. They say Shadowborn absorb other things. Things that normal Valtorians cannot sense. Like what? I do not know exactly. The texts were destroyed long ago. The Valtorian Council decided they were false, that they made Shadowborn seem important when we are actually just defective. Her voice was bitter. For generations, my people have been hidden away. Parents who have Shadowborn children keep them secret. Some are abandoned. I was lucky. My family kept me, but they never let me go outside. Jiwon felt his anger from yesterday returning. That's not right. That's not lucky. It is lucky compared to what happens to many of us, Nari said simply. At least I lived. Before Jiwon could respond, his communicator beeped. It was a message from Commander Yoon, head of the diplomatic mission. Report to briefing room in 30 minutes. Bring your companion. The briefing room was full when they arrived. All the diplomats and their Valtorian companions were there. The other Valtorians glowed and shimmered in their seats. Nari's dark cloak made her look like a hole in the room, an absence of light among all that brightness. Commander Yoon stood at the front, a stern woman in her 50s who'd served in Earth's space fleet for decades. Her eyes found Jiwon and hardened. Captain Park, she said, her voice cutting through the chatter. Interesting choice you made yesterday. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to Jiwon and Nari. Yes, Commander, Jiwon said evenly. Lord Theros contacted me last night. He was quite upset. He felt you were mocking the ceremony by choosing the... She paused, clearly searching for a diplomatic word. The least appropriate companion. I chose the companion I wanted, Jiwon replied. I wasn't mocking anything. Nevertheless, you've created a diplomatic incident. The other Valtorian officials are questioning whether Earth takes this alliance seriously. Yoon's jaw was tight. I'm considering sending you back to Earth and requesting a replacement. Jiwon felt Nari go very still beside him. He could imagine what she was thinking. Even the human who chose her was going to reject her now. Commander, with respect, that would be a mistake, Jiwon said, keeping his voice calm. The ceremony's rules were clear. Choose a companion. I chose one. If the Valtorians are upset because I didn't choose based on appearance, that says more about their values than mine. You're on thin ice, Captain. Yes, Commander. Ji-won met her eyes steadily. But I stand by my choice. Yoon stared at him for a long moment, then sighed.
Fine, but you'll file daily reports on your cultural learning.
If I sense any problems, you're gone. Understood? Understood. The briefing continued with assignments for each diplomat. They would spend the next month learning Valtorian culture, language, and customs. After that, they would travel to various Valtorian worlds to establish formal relations. When the meeting ended, Ji-won and Nari walked back to their quarters in silence. Finally, Nari spoke. You defended me in there. Of course I did. No one has ever defended me before. Her voice cracked slightly. My own family would not speak up when others insulted me. But you, a stranger, risked your position. Nari, listen to me. Ji-won stopped walking and turned to face her. I don't know you well yet, but I know that how people treat others who can't benefit them shows their true character. Your people judged you on something you can't control. That's not right, and I won't participate in it. Nari looked at him with those solid black eyes. You are strange, Ji-won Park. I get that a lot. Over the next week, Ji-won and Nari settled into a routine. She taught him Valtorian language, which was complex and full of nuances. She explained their customs, their history, their social structure. She was patient and knowledgeable, far better as a teacher than he'd expected. But Ji-won started noticing strange things. His neural implant, which all diplomats had for instant translation, usually gave him headaches. He'd learned to live with the constant dull ache behind his eyes. But when he was around Nari, the headaches disappeared completely. The moment she left the room, they came back. The station's communications array was old and temperamental. It would often lose signal or produce static. But whenever Nari was near the console, everything worked perfectly. Crystal clear connections, no dropped signals. His personal tablet had been glitching for weeks. Screen freezes, random shutdowns, corrupted files. He'd been meaning to get it replaced. But 3 days after Nari arrived, it started working flawlessly. Every problem just vanished. He didn't mention it at first, thinking it was coincidence. But the pattern was too consistent to ignore. One evening, he found Nari standing by the window looking out at the stars. The station lights were dimmed for night cycle, and in the darkness he saw something remarkable. Her dark patches weren't just patterns. They were glowing. Very faintly in wavelengths his eyes could barely perceive, like the deepest red or ultraviolet. Nari, he said carefully. Can I ask you something weird? She turned. Yes. Have you noticed anything unusual happening around me? Around my equipment? She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then quietly, you noticed the headaches stopping. The electronics working better. Yes, I noticed. He moved closer. What's happening? I told you that Shadowborn absorb different things than normal Valtorians. Her voice was hesitant. I feel things around me. Signals. Waves. Energy that moves through space that others cannot sense. Sometimes, without meaning to, I affect them. What kind of energy? Electromagnetic. Radio waves. The pulses from your implant. The fields that make your devices work. She looked down. I cannot control it very well. I learned to hide it because when I was young, strange things would happen around me and people got scared. Ji-won's scientist brain was racing. Nari, do you realize what you're saying? You can sense and manipulate electromagnetic fields directly. That's incredible. It is shameful, she corrected. It is proof that I am defective. It's proof that you're different. Different isn't defective, he started pacing, excited now. The other Valtorians absorb visible light. You absorb the whole electromagnetic spectrum. That's not less than what they do. It's more, but I am ugly because of it. You're not ugly. You're just operating on wavelengths they can't see. He grabbed his tablet and started pulling up information. Nari, normal human eyes can only see a tiny fraction of the light spectrum. We built tools to see the rest. Radio, microwave, X-ray, gamma. Your people are the same. They built their whole society around one tiny part of the spectrum and decided it was the only part that mattered. The ancient texts mentioned this, Nari said slowly. They said Shadowborn could see the invisible paths, navigate the dark spaces, sense danger before it arrived. But the council said these were myths. What if they weren't myths? What if they were suppressed truths? Jiwan was fully in research mode now. Think about it. If Shadowborn had valuable abilities that would threaten the power structure, better to call you defective than admit you can do things they can't. Nari sat down heavily. I never thought about it that way. I always believed what they told me. That I was broken. Wrong. A mistake of nature. You're not a mistake, Jiwan said firmly. You're just rare. And I think we need to figure out exactly what you can do. Why? Because knowledge is never a bad thing. Captain Jiwan Park stood in the Grand Hall of the Valtorian Empire, trying not to show how nervous he felt. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see it. Golden lights floated in the air without any visible support, casting strange shadows on the crystal walls. Everything here was designed to make visitors feel small and impressed. It was working. He was part of Earth's first real diplomatic mission to this part of the galaxy. The Valtorians controlled the major trade routes, and Earth needed their friendship desperately. Without their support, humanity would remain isolated in their small corner of space, struggling to survive on limited resources. The Valtorian High Chancellor, Lord Theros, stood on a raised platform. His skin glowed with soft blue and purple lights that moved across his body in mesmerizing patterns. He was tall, maybe 8 feet, with features that seemed almost too perfect to be real. His voice echoed through the hall when he spoke. Humans of Earth, Lord Theros began, we welcome you to our empire. To seal our alliance, we follow an ancient tradition. Each of your diplomats will choose a companion from among our people. These companions will teach you our ways and stand as proof of our bond. Jiwan watched as 20 Valtorian females walked into the hall in a single line. His breath caught in his throat. They were stunning. Their skin shimmered with colors that shifted and flowed like living rainbows. Some had patterns of gold and silver. Others glowed with emerald green or ruby red. Their movements were graceful, almost like they were dancing instead of walking. The other human diplomats beside Jiwan started whispering excitedly. Ambassador Kim was already pointing at a Valtorian with diamond-bright patterns. Director Hyun was staring at one whose skin looked like liquid starlight. Then Jiwan noticed something odd. At the far end of the line, partly hidden in shadows, stood one more Valtorian. She wore a dark cloak that covered most of her body. What little skin he could see looked dull and gray, completely different from the others. She stood with her head down as if trying to make herself invisible. You may now choose, Lord Theros announced. The other diplomats rushed forward immediately. Ambassador Kim practically ran to the diamond-patterned Valtorian. Director Hyun approached the Starlight One with a huge smile. One by one, the beautiful Valtorians were selected. The humans congratulated each other, laughing and talking about how lucky they were. Jiwan walked slowly toward the end of the line. The cloaked Valtorian seemed surprised when he stopped in front of her. She looked up and he saw her face clearly for the first time. Her skin was indeed gray with irregular dark patches instead of glowing patterns. Her eyes were a deep, solid black without any of the luminescence the others had. What's your name? Jiwan asked quietly. Nari, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm Jiwan. I choose you as my companion. The hall went completely silent. Then someone laughed. Then another. Soon the entire hall was filled with laughter. The other human diplomats looked at Jiwan like he'd lost his mind. Ambassador Kim actually walked over and grabbed his arm. Jiwan, what are you doing? Kim hissed. Are you trying to insult them? Pick one of the pretty ones. There's still a few left. Jiwan gently pulled his arm free. I've made my choice. Lord Theros looked angry, his glowing patterns flashing red for a moment. But the tradition was clear. Once a choice was made, it had to be honored. Through gritted teeth, he said, Very well. The selection is complete. May these bonds strengthen our alliance. The ceremony ended quickly after that. Jiwan could feel everyone's eyes on him as he left the hall with Nari walking silently behind him. The other diplomats were already chatting happily with their beautiful companions. Their Valtorians glowed and sparkled, responding with melodic voices. Nari kept her cloak wrapped tight and said nothing. On the shuttle back to Earth's orbital station, Jiwan sat across from Nari. She still hadn't spoken. The other humans and their Valtorian companions filled the rest of the seats, their conversations and laughter echoing through the cabin. No one sat near Jiwan and Nari. It was like they had an invisible barrier around them. You can take off your cloak if you want, Jiwan said, It's just us back here. Nari hesitated, then slowly pulled back her hood. In the shuttle's normal lighting, he could see her features better. The gray skin, the dark patches, the black eyes. By Valtorian standards, he supposed she was ugly. But there was something about her face that seemed kind. Sad but kind. Why did you choose me? She asked suddenly. Jiwan thought about his answer carefully. Can I be honest? She nodded. Everyone was rushing to pick the most beautiful one like they were choosing jewelry. It felt wrong. You're supposed to be my cultural companion. Someone who'll teach me about your people. I don't need someone pretty for that. I need someone real. But I am not a good choice, Nari said. I am Shadowborn. My people consider me broken. Shadowborn? A mutation. It happens rarely in our species. We do not glow like the others. We are considered ugly, shameful. She looked down at her hands. Lord Tharos put me in the selection as a joke. He never thought anyone would choose me. He wanted to prove that even humans who are new to the galaxy would reject a Shadowborn. Jiwan felt anger rise in his chest. That's cruel. It is our way. Nari's voice was flat, accepting. I have lived my whole life knowing I am worthless. Today just proved it again. Even when given to someone freely, I am only chosen by someone who knows nothing about me. If you knew what I was before, you would have picked someone else. Maybe, Jiwan admitted. But I picked you now, and I don't regret it. For the first time, something flickered in Nari's black eyes. Surprise maybe, or hope. It was gone quickly, like she was afraid to feel it. The shuttle docked at the orbital station. As everyone filed out, Jiwan heard Ambassador Kim talking to his Valtorian companion, a female named Mirai whose skin glowed with soft pink and gold. That Jiwan, Kim said, laughing, always has to be different. Probably thinks he's making some kind of statement. Wait until Command hears about this. His career is finished. Mirai's response was quiet but clear. The Shadowborn are not just ugly. They are bad luck. Your friend has made a terrible mistake. Jiwan pretended not to hear. He led Nari through the station corridors to the quarters that had been prepared for the diplomatic pairs. They were nice rooms with a common area and 2 bedrooms. Nari stood in the middle of the space looking lost. The bedroom on the right is yours, Jiwan said. Make yourself comfortable. We'll have a briefing tomorrow morning, but tonight you should rest. You are being kind to me, Nari said, and she sounded confused. Why? Jiwan smiled. Where I come from, how you treat people says more about you than it says about them. I'm not going to be cruel just because others are. Besides, you're going to be teaching me about your culture. That makes you my teacher. Teachers deserve respect. Nari stood there for a long moment, just looking at him. Finally, she bowed slightly. Thank you, Jiwan Park. I will try to be a good teacher even though I am not worthy of your kindness. You're worthy, Jiwan said firmly. Don't let anyone tell you different. Not even yourself. That night, Jiwan lay in his bed thinking about the day. He'd probably destroyed his career. The other diplomats would report back that he'd insulted the Valtorians by choosing the ugly one. Command would be furious, but when he'd seen Nari standing there in the shadows, rejected before anyone even knew her, something in him had refused to just walk past. His mother used to say that the true measure of a person was what they did when no one important was watching. Well, everyone important had been watching today, and he'd still made the choice that felt right. In the other bedroom, Nari sat on her bed with her cloak finally removed. She touched her gray skin, tracing the dark patches that marked her as different. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her, not because they had to, not because there was no other option, but because this human, this Jiwan, had walked past all the beauty in the hall and picked her. She didn't understand it. But deep in her chest, something warm was starting to grow, something she hadn't felt in so long she'd almost forgotten what it was. Hope.